What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another War Within video. Hope you're all doing very, very well. We're going to do a big update to the Storm Elemental build for Ellie Shaman, the Storm build for Ellie Shaman. There's some big changes that have come through on the talents in the patch notes. I'm not going to read through all the patch notes. There's quite a few changes that have come through. It just kind of keeps going on and on, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary here. So the two most important ones that I think you need to look at are right here. So we've got Mastery Elemental Overload can now proc Tempest. This is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And on top of that, Tempest also got 50% more damage. Now, it also got 50% more damage for Enhancement Shaman, which I don't know if Blizzard plays the game, but if you're playing the Storm build as an Enhancement Shaman, Tempest is like your #1 ability. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. For Ellie, this is really good news because Tempest wasn't doing near enough damage, and now it will be doing a lot more damage, and it wasn't overloading, and now it will. So just straight up for the Storm build for Ellie Shaman, you have a massive, massive buff here coming in. 50% more damage to Tempest, and it can overload. And it'll look something like this. This is kind of what your damage profile will look like now. I was just sustaining 1.6, almost 1.7 million damage per second on 5 target dummies, which is really good. That's a really great number to see right now. And when we're talking about tuning, and we're getting a little bit closer to pre-patch, a little bit closer to the expansion, every week that goes by, we're getting closer and closer to what the numbers are probably going to actually be. So this is a great to see for Ellie Shaman. The damage is pretty high, and you can see my Tempest actually ended up doing 5% of my damage overall, which actually isn't too bad. I wish it did a little bit more. Like for Enhancement Shaman, it ends up being like, 20% of your damage. So I think they actually have a little bit more work to do on Tempest for Ellie Shaman in particular, but I'm excited about the progress, and I'm excited that they actually invested into overloads or Tempest as well, which is really good. But I'll have to wait and see where they kind of go. Now, otherwise, there are a few other little changes. They did buff our Thunderstrike ward. It still does basically no damage. So if anybody from Blizzard is actually watching this, I want to say that this has to change. Like, there's no point in taking one talent point here if it's only going to do 0.3% of my damage. So that's still a little bit disappointing. I don't really understand the point of having an extra shield enchant. If this shield enchant did more than just damage, then it would be an acceptable thing, that it doesn't do a lot of damage. If it also generated Maelstrom every single time your lightning ward struck something, that would be really good. That would actually be really cool. And I think if they're not going to buff the damage of Thunderstrike ward, it should generate 1 Maelstrom every time it strikes something. Like, that would be a really good change, I think, because right now the damage is just kind of abysmal. And if you're gonna add a talent in the mid section of the tree, it's got to do a little bit of damage. It can't just do 0.3%. So that's annoying. There's other talents that are now working correctly. For example, Lightning Conduit is always giving you damage now, which is really, really good. And then I want to talk about Echo the Elementals for a second, because this is really cool and something that I think they've finally gotten right. So when your main elemental fades, you're going to summon a lesser elemental for 15 seconds, okay? Now, what's really cool is that if you take Primal Elementalist, your elemental gets an additional ability. And for Storm Elemental, that ends up being their little Tempest thing. So it's this thing here. So you press an extra action button, and your Storm Elemental will start channeling like Darth Vader, okay? Once he's done doing that, once he's done existing, your lesser Storm Elemental will spawn, and you can press Tempest again from your lesser Elemental as well. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. Now, ultimately, what ends up happening here is you're going to have your main Elemental up for 30 seconds. Then you're going to have a lesser Elemental up for 15 seconds. That's 45 seconds. The cooldown of your Storm Elemental is going to be getting reduced like crazy because of Skybreakers and because of Flash of Lightning, okay? So if you can get your Storm Elemental to end up being like a 45-second cooldown, you can basically have permanent uptime on your Ellies, which is really neat. And you can capitalize on this uptime by pressing the extra action button that's going to spawn them again, okay? So let's see what this actually looks like here. Let's check out the damage. I'm going to spawn my Elemental. One thing that's really important, I'm just going to finish on this, is that you need to keep spreading your flame shocks because of Skybreakers, okay? And the way that you do that effectively without having your liquid magma totem up all the time is through Surge of Power. Every time you press Earthquake on an AoE pack, press your Flame Shock, and it will spread 2 Flame Shocks. Those Flame Shocks are going to have really high crit chance. They're going to reduce the cooldown of your Ellie. That's going to bring you your Ellie back. And again, if your Elemental is active, you get Elemental Unity, which gives you more damage. So it's very, very, very good. Let's go Storm Ellie here, and then we're going to go Chain Lightning into a... We're going to get a free one here, right? Okay, there we go. Let's do our Liquid Magma Totem, and then we're off to the races. Now we're going to do a Tempest, and we're going to get some Chain Lightning. Here we go. We're going to do an Earthquake, and then Chain Lightning. Big Stormkeeper proc here. Earthquake into Flame Shock to keep my Flame Shocks going. Oh, my extra action. There's my extra action button for my Ellie. So he's doing his big Tempest thing now. I'm getting a bunch of cast speed. Okay. Now my Storm Ellie is going to fade here. Now I'm going to get a lesser Storm Ellie in a second. And watch the refresh down here. My Tempest is going to refresh. There, I just refreshed. There's my lesser Ellie. I refresh. I press my Tempest again on my Ellie, and he's doing his Darth Vader things again. Okay. So that's how that works. And I think, like, it's really important to understand that that's really important. Now, my lesser Ellie is about to die, and guess what? My main elemental is back. I'm going to press my main elemental again. Now I'm back to my main elemental. I'm going to press his extra action button. He's going to do the Darth Vader thing again. So the uptime that you can have on your Storm Ellie is actually really crazy. And I think that this is going to be really fun as long as you keep spreading your Flame Shocks. That's all you have to do is spread Flame Shocks over and over and over again. And you can do that easily by pressing Flame Shock after you press Earthquake, and that's going to get you 2 Flame Shocks instead of 1. Here's a Tempest proc into an Earthquake, into a Flame Shock, then we're back to Chain Lightning. My regular elemental is about to time out here in a minute. There we go. Now my lesser Ellie's out. I'm going to press my lesser Ellie's extra action button. He's doing Darth Vader things. There we go. I'm going to press spread more Flame Shocks. I'm going to press my main Ellie right now and see what happens. Okay, so my pressing main Ellie does cancel your lesser Ellie. You have to be a little bit careful, but you don't want to cancel your lesser Ellie, I guess. But you can see the damage we're doing is like pretty good. And I'm just maintaining Flame Shocks, and I'm able to keep my elementals out basically all the time. You get an extra elemental every time you press Stormkeeper, and your Stormkeeper has its cooldown reduced by Flash of Lightning as well. So I think this is a really, really interesting build now. And I think that your uptime on your Ellies is going to be basically permanent if you're spreading those Flame Shocks. If you keep those going. There's my lesser elemental. I'm going to press his extra action button again. And then we'll see how much damage our Tempest has done from our Ellies. Not my Tempest, but the Tempest from my Ellies. There, you can see my Storm Elemental's back. So my uptime on Storm Elemental, we're doing 1.75 mil, by the way, sustained damage. The uptime on my Elementals is like 100%. Basically, right there. Flame Shock damage is pretty good. Lightning Rod, Earthquake, and Chain Lightning. There is my Tempest from my Storm Ellie. Okay. It's doing 3% of the damage all on its own. And then my lesser elemental is doing 2% more damage. And a lot of that is because of Tempest. It's almost entirely because of Tempest. That's the extra action button from my Ellie. So the extra action button altogether did 4.5% of my damage. That's pretty crazy, right? The uptime on my elementals is so high because of Skybreakers and Flash of Lightning. And because that lesser elemental can now also channel the super Darth Vader move, that thing did 4.5% of my overall damage. That is really good. That is a very, very good number in my opinion. Altogether, our Storm Elemental did 4.5% and our extra guys did another 2%. So it's 6.5% of our damage is now coming from our elementals because we can keep them up so much. That's really interesting to me. As long as you're, again, spreading those Flame Shocks with Liquid Magma Totem or with Surge of Power, you're going to be ticking those Flame Shocks. They're going to be critting, and they're going to be giving you more Storm Elementals. So I think this is really interesting now. And there's our Tempest plus the Overload. That's 5.7% of our damage. That brings it up here, right below Flame Shock. So altogether, this is a really good sign, I think, for Ellie Shaman. I think on the Lightning build in particular, I think that obviously Thunder Strike still needs some work. I don't know why it's doing 0.3% of our damage, but whatever. The elementals are now much stronger. You get an extra action button press with the lesser elemental, which is really cool. That incentivizes you to take primal elementals even more. And then you can cool down your Ellie like crazy and have it up for basically every single pack in a Mythic Plus dungeon. Or, yeah, in a raid, it's going to be a little bit different. But in Mythic Plus in particular, I really like the direction that they've gone here. And you can have your extended elementals here. Like, it's worth taking these talents now. Because once again, if you think about the elemental unity buff coming through, that's a really big deal. You just get more damage whenever your elemental is active. So let me know what you guys think. I think the buffs in general are very good. Tempest does 50% more damage. It can now overload. And then a lot of the other Tempests, some of the quality of life is good. Now Lightning Conduit's working all the time. This doesn't do enough damage, still needs to do more damage. And then the combination of Skybreakers plus Primal Elementalists and then these lesser elementals now giving you the extra bonus action button. Their Tempest, right, is actually doing a serious amount of damage. So I think it's really good. I'm happy about this. It's a good direction for the Lightning build to go. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. I'm going to keep covering more of the War Within, so stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much again for watching. Love you all. I'll see you in the next one.